So I'm here getting ready to put the suspension on the car, and I was reminded of something that sucks. When they stole the car, they rammed on 3 lug nuts onto the front wheels and like 2 on the back, but they're not the right thread pitch. So I'm gonna yank these off. That one I already started pulling, but about to see. Oh man. Looks like we get wheel stud upgrade. See how bad they are. Let's see if I can chase them or not. So they're not so bad that they can't be chased. So I'm gonna have to run a tap over them. That first thread's pretty bad. Oh man. I might go see if we have some ARPs on the shelf and it's forced upgrade day. It's just one forced upgrade after another. Getting this car back together, it's going to be cool no matter what, just because of all the things I've had to replace. Alright, we're on the ground. So this bolt's kind of stuck. It's the upper, which is a camber bolt. You could try to hit it with the gun from the back side, but if it's not going to move, it's not going to move. Even like the wrench here, she's super tight. So trying to pound it out from the front, if you just hit the end of it, you're going to end up mushrooming out the end. So a little pro tip is take a actual nut, put it on backwards, makes it actually a little bit better even. So just get that threaded on a few threads and grab a wrench. So now we have a flat surface to beat on. And need a bigger hammer. Yeah, she's in there. All right, so I'm gonna hit it a little bit more with 2 hands. See if that gets it done. Well, that's not working. Bolt's still good. We're gonna try plan C. So after this, we're gonna have to find a different bolt because we got the big guns out. This is the Snap-on Ugga Dugga Master. And it's out. So the bolt's still in pretty good shape. It just had a lot of corrosion. That's what was holding it in place. The nut I'll probably have to replace after hitting it with that air hammer, but I'll try to run a tap through it and see if I can bring it back because it's an expensive nut. Retaining clip for the brake line. we're gonna come up to the top. But these guys, I don't want to take them all the way off yet because you can see it just drop down. So we'll take one off. I'll take another one off. And for the last one, I'm going to basically grab the strut from below and use one hand to take it off. Old busted. So these are actually KYB AGX struts with ground control, although it might not be ground control. These might just be like eBay coilover sleeves, and then D2 camber top hats. So here is the new Koni insert into the top. Make sure that spins freely. The bearing's a little crusty in there. I might shoot a little bit of grease into it, a little bit, just to try to free it up again. But basically, these go in the same way they came out. So you just put it up into the top. Find one of your nuts and you put it on there, just finger tight. So on around the circle. And you can let go and it just hangs. And I'm just going to tighten the top down real quick. Now, for anyone who thinks this might be a downgrade, being that we went from a coilover, essentially, to a strut and spring, the nice thing about this is we have full droop travel under tension. So you see there's no bound up droop travel. On this, you can see that the droop travel is very limited before you lose contact with the spring in the top. So you'd have to put a helper spring in to keep some tension on the droop travel, which I was, planning on doing, but I liked the ride height it was at, and to do a helper spring I'd have to run a shorter coil on this, so it didn't make a lot of sense. With a drag car specifically, when the car is accelerating, you're going to unload the front suspension, but you still want the front suspension to claw at the ground. And if you have no actual, like if you've maxed out your travel, then you can't really do anything with it. It's not going to grip anymore because your tire's just going to skip along the pavement instead of gripping the pavement. It's a little tight because there's paint on the inside. So I'll just kind of wiggle it in there. Looks like I might be able to get the top one in actually. Yeah, top one will go in. Give it a little tap it home. Top one gets a washer. And I went ahead and chased that nut. So let's get that started. And then the bottom one, we're going to have to try to push, get the tension off it a little bit. See if we can get that going there. One of the downsides to this setup, while it should perform better from a standpoint of actual suspension, is that it is a larger, heavier spring. 19.5 pounds for the fronts on this versus what came off at 14.2 pounds. So, you know, there's about a 5 pound difference, 5.2 pound difference. So it's 20 pounds approximately over the entire vehicle. The rears will probably be slightly less of a difference, but still, I mean, 20 pounds is 20 pounds. I'll have to find 20 pounds elsewhere in the car. Yesterday's tacos, I'll have to find 20 pounds to pull out of the car somewhere else. One other quick tip I didn't share as I was doing the other side. You can see how these get all corroded, if it'll focus on it. Focus. Well, if it would focus, you'd see how, there we go, how corroded these get. So it's a good idea, since you do need this to move in order to align the vehicle, to use a little bit of anti-seize on, I use it on the shoulder portion of these, which lets them freely move around. I don't really use it on the threads because I want the threads to seat and to hold tight. And they don't usually get stuck anyway with these guys. It's such a large coarse thread that they don't typically, with good ugga-duggas, they don't typically get stuck. So a little bit of anti-seize. You don't need a lot, it goes a long way. So the last thing we have to do is put the brake line in, but you can see the way that they set this up, there's a pass-through, but unless you disconnect the brake line, which involves rebleeding the whole system, you're not going to get it in. So what I'm going to do is just make a little tiny slot that's wide enough just for the line itself to go through, and then you can put the little C-clip on it and it's installed. So there you can see the slot that I made, and it just used the saw to cut out basically a 1/4 inch slot, and then the brake line went right in. So I cut a slot just big enough, you go back behind it, the line slides through, and then you pull it forward, and then you install your C-clip. Simple as that. So front suspension's done. That only took a couple of minutes. Looks pretty good up in there. I'm gonna go ahead and put these wheels back on, try to find some good lug nuts and get those wheels on there and set it down and see how the front looks. Now there's no motor in it, so the front's gonna look kind of funny. I might have someone sitting there just to simulate my engine. It just keeps on getting funner. I just noticed that this was hanging down as I jacked it up to do the rear, and that's a hole in the gas tank from the idiots that stole it. Decided they wanted the gas, so they were going to pop a hole in the tank to steal the gas. Which sadly means I need a new tank. And what sucks is this was one of the cooler tanks because it's a non-saddle tank. So the tank doesn't make the hump on the other side, it just goes flat, which means that you don't ever have to worry about starvation on this side. So that's not fun. I don't know how that went, something like that. But that's, gotta love it. Thieves, there's a special place in hell for car thieves. There really is. And they're all going there. So the rears are a little bit trickier than the fronts because they don't just come out easy. Bottom knuckle comes off the same, except, oh, it looks like I can't get that gun in, so I have to go get a smaller gun. The Ugga Dugga time. Alright, smaller gun. Number 2. So that wasn't too bad. But now we got to get them out. There's a few ways to do this. One is to try to like kind of push on the back with a wrench or something while you go backwards with it. I don't know if you can see that or not. Now it's just barely out. And I'll put the wrench here. Put the wrench there while I back it out. And then it comes out. So that is one way. Bottom one just wanted to come out. So the rear lower is off. Now we got to take the upper off, which is a little bit harder because it's in the back seat of the car. So I got too much stuff back here. I have to move some things to make room. You have to expose the strut tops, which is not a problem, except when you got your seat in the way. Otherwise I don't want to come out. So there they are there. So luckily we can get a 12 on those two. It looks like we can get it on all 3, so it shouldn't be too hard to get this bad boy out. 1, we're just gonna let it fall. 2. Let's see if I can get this last one, if I gotta go get an extension. Nope, I'm gonna have to go get a wobbly and an extension and stuff. Got the extendo down there. It's amazing how much torque you lose when you have a wobbly. And it's off. Now we go to the bottom and pull it out. Alright, I'm going to have to pry this off the knuckle. Oh, it's going to come right off, looks like. Oh, we still got a brake line in there. Whoops. I'm going to have to get that brake line off, and then we'll be ready to pull it out. It's hammer time. Clips out. Brake line's off. Strut is out. Out with the old. We're gonna go weigh this guy with the other one, see how much different it is. 14.7 on the rear. This might be a lot heavier actually, more than I was thinking. Yeah, 21.2, so 21.1. So about, what is that, 6-7 pounds? So we're about 24 pounds total on the weight difference between the two. Is that the right one? Yeah. More shenanigans. I held this up and it looks like it's the right spread left to right, but it's a little shy on that side. I think these are wagon top hats or something, Impreza top hats from a later year, so they're not quite the same, so we get to do more modifying. Yay! That should do, hopefully. About to find out. So I got the hole drilled. I got it going up. Just using the jack slowly. Give it a little bit of pressure. Getting the top hat perfectly lined up with these holes because it is directional is a little bit tricky to feel where they're at. Try to like twist it just right. Alright, I think it's in. About to find out. Let's take a quick look. Let's see what we got in here. We are in at least 2 of the, no, we're in all 3. Just got to give it a little bit of a push up. And you can see there's 2, and the 3rd one in our new hole back there. We're using washers on top to give it a little bit of strength, because the holes are a little bit bigger than stock. So go ahead and push that up and get it in. So I was getting a little bound up on the top, so I've got one that I was able to just start, and I'm left the other 2 off, and I'm going to go ahead and take the tension off the jack, see if I can wiggle it back and forth to get the other 2 to go up in, but they're super close. Alright, I ended up having to just make this hole slightly bigger. It was just a little bit too small, which means I just drilled this hole, or drilled the far one just a hair off. But when you're underneath the car, it's hard to get things 100% perfect. But considering it's the top hat, and the most important thing is, you know, how things line up, should be okay. We'll see what happens when we tighten it down. Hopefully this will work. If not, we'll just go back to using the other hole. No harm, no foul. All installed. Looks good up in there. Time to do the other side and see how the car sits overall. Next thing I gotta do, since I hate how turbo subframes feel with the steering angle, it just doesn't ever feel right. I need to finish notching this and then box it back in. So you can see right there the old up pipe was rubbing. I'm assuming the new one will do the same. So I need to get this further clearanced and then weld some plate in here to reinforce it. So that's the next step. Alright, so my idea is to cut this kind of along the red line, set it in here, and then just kind of splay it out to the edges and then weld it all up. And that should give me the clearance for an aftermarket up pipe there, without having to switch to a turbo subframe, and it'll reinforce this corner here because this doesn't have a lot of strength on that motor mount. I don't pretend to be any kind of a good welder. I don't even pretend to be a bad welder. I'm not any kind of a welder. So what the idea is I'm going to put this in here. I'm going to kind of tack the upper corner there, and then just along that edge, and then kind of hammer and form it into the other side, and should basically sit kind of like that when it's all done. And there is a pass-through. I'm not going to film this because I'm, like I said, a terrible welder, and I don't particularly want to destroy my camera with throwing an arc in front of it without a lens. So I'll show you the finished terrible, awful product, and that'll be that. Still smoking, the only shot you'll get of my terrible welds. And I'm going to leave the flashlight on it so you can't even see it. No, it won't. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and get the grinder out and try to make that a little bit prettier, and then paint it up and be done. Threw a little primer on there. Doesn't look bad. So a pipe will come up in there, and hopefully I don't have to trim it more, or might have to do a little bit more massaging to it, but there's a notch for an up pipe. Turbo cross member made out of non-turbo cross member. So it looks pretty good. I've got my simulated EJ207. That's about the right height I was looking for. So on the front at least, should be pretty good. And then the other important thing, which we can see right here, is the axle angle isn't wild. It's not up, it's down, which is good. So I think all is well here. Yeah, that's a good, that should give plenty of travel without having to bottom out or anything. Room for a little bit taller tire, good stuff.